going, baby? How you living? How you living?
I really like to take this challenge for myself, aside of just being a musician.
She had a swishy jacket and some thing in her head.
It's really big for you.
Yeah, it's like the size of me.
Don't worry, I won't say anything stupid. I hope. It's just like a crazy metal band, like shooting everything up.
My advice is forget the movies and look for a good job.
My daughter is going to sleep, so I need to say goodnight to her.
I don't want terrible things to always be happening to me and my children.
I think I was more nervous when the movie was premiering and coming out, because then I realized that people actually had to see it.
Nice to escape the studio. We have the beautiful, sunny, not sunny English countryside behind us.
This country and this world can do a whole lot better.
Wow, what a presentation.
Right, like I want people to know that you didn't just show up now.
That's where the idea of the pancake came from.
But you're the only person ever who's ever asked me that question. Ever.
Oh, wow.
Can't sleep?
You expecting anyone?
We tried to call for help, but we couldn't get no cell service.
There's been an accident down the road. Mind if I wash up? Don't want to eat with blood on my hands. Whatever you do, don't open the door.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I am Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, based here in Seattle, Washington, the United States of America. And thank you so much for joining me on this Wednesday hump day, the 11th of August, 2021. And a few quick housekeeping details. I do have another live stream this afternoon, and it actually just got changed in terms of the time. It was originally scheduled for 3 p.m. Pacific time, and it's now going to be at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So if you have a chance to catch that, it's going to be with Heather O'Neill, who is the director of No Ordinary Life, which is an amazing documentary film about 5 camera women who are journalists that have been basically putting themselves in harm's way in a lot of the wars and conflicts around the world over the last 40 years. So Heather's going to be joining me at 2 p.m. And then tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific in the morning, Mike and Lottie from Hybrid return to talk about Black Halo. It's now finally out. It's been out for about a month. At the time when we did their first interview back in May, I was not allowed to talk about the name of the album or even the song titles, other than a few that were out at that time for videos. So they're coming back to talk about that, and they've got a lot of things in the works. So that's going to be at 10 p.m. And then at 1 p.m., Lena Scissorhands from Infected Rain is joining me. And I know there's a lot of fans out there for that band particularly. They're going to be hopefully doing their U.S. tour. It's scheduled for this fall. Whether it actually happens, again, we'll just keep our fingers crossed, but that's going to be at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time tomorrow. If you'd like to know more about what I have coming up, please follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram. That's where I post everything first, and then some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. If you're here watching my YouTube channel for the very first time, if you could hit the subscribe button, I greatly appreciate that. And if you want to know what's coming up, there's a little notification bell that you can also hit, but please be aware that we'll send emails to your inbox. You'll probably see many other videos on YouTube that keep saying subscribe and then hit the notification bell, smash that notification bell. Well, I try to be as transparent as possible what actually happens with these things, but subscribing to me will just allow me to continue to do what I do, kind of move to the next level on YouTube and all those wonderful things. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, I always appreciate that. That's where I started off with the Alice tour over a year and a few months ago. So I will always maintain a presence on Twitch. Okay, my guest today is a talented theater, TV, and film actor. She is the lead in the new film, A Savage Nature, which is available now. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Joanna Whicker. Hi, Joanna.
Hi. Hello.
How are you?
That was fun. I'm good. It was fun to have myself introduced like that.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, it's something, I'll be completely honest. I covered a horror convention back in 2012, and one of the hosts there, he did such an amazing job of always introducing his guests. And I kept thinking to myself, if I'm ever in a position where I can interview folks, I should make sure I do introductions like what he did. And so that's where it came from. His name's Tony Kaye. He's an amazing journalist. And so, yeah, no, it's my pleasure to introduce you and have you here with me. I so appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into the film, and then we'll kind of go through things in your background and maybe what's coming up. And just kind of know for everybody out there that I do my best not to spoil films, because obviously we want to make sure that you get a chance to see it without knowing what happens in the end, or if there's a plot twist or what have you. But in general, Joanna, how did you get involved with this film?
Thank you for that warning, because I might have slipped up and done a spoiler or two. So I'm very glad you said that. I got involved with this film way back when I was in my senior year of college. The director of this film was working at the school, was helping us kind of try to merge what we were being trained in theater. So we were trying to merge over to, let's do some film stuff. And basically we did some scenes from the script. She was like, my partner and I wrote it together, and we were like, oh, cool. So we just kind of were playing around, and I just remember really loving the scene that I got to work on. I expressed him how much I love it, and then I thought that was the end of it. And then maybe 4 months later, Paul reached out and was like, hey, Catherine and I want you to come read for this role. And so I went in, I did an audition, and I self-taped for it. I'd moved up to New York at that point, because I had moved right to New York after school. And yeah, I self-taped for it. I went down, I did my audition, I did my chemistry read with Steve, and then the next thing I knew, we were back in Virginia and we were shooting it. And it was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, like you mentioned, you're in your last year of college at that time when you first got involved with this. So what was that, like 2 years ago? How long ago was this?
Oh, I graduated from college in 2017. So it actually has been quite the process, because I think everything that happened with COVID and everything like that, I guess it just kind of, as we were going to start going into festivals and things like that, the world kind of shut down. So the release of this project, I think, is actually a little bit further than was expected. So it's been quite a journey, and it's been really cool actually to dive back in and watching the trailer just now. It just like is so nostalgic, not just because of how they did the trailer, which makes it look like a nostalgic film, but just thinking about being there, it just puts me right back in that space. So yeah, we must have shot this late 2017, I would say. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. See, I've had the pleasure of talking to so many film guests. I love hearing about these timelines, and granted, COVID put a wrench into a lot of them, just like what happened with this film.
Of course.
It was ready to hit the festival circuit, and then everything kind of shut down. But and I've talked to a couple of directors about this too. It's like, I'm amazed that any film gets made ever, because there's so many moving parts to it.
Right.
And sometimes you might be filming over a long period of time, where you get the principal photography done, but then all the post work and reshoots and all this other kind of stuff happens, and getting people's schedules together.
Absolutely. So, if they've moved on to a different project, like.
Yeah, exactly. So when you were thinking back to when you were filming this, do you remember, like, roughly, like, how long were you shooting the principal photography for this film?
We shot over 11 days straight. We started from day one, and it was an 11-day shoot. I stayed in the house that the movie is shot in. I actually slept in one of the rooms upstairs, and then downstairs in the basement, which was very scary. The house was really old. We shot over 11 days. We stayed on site when the rest of the cast was in. They were there as well. I think there are 7 of us total in the whole movie, and there was maybe one day we were all together. And then we would just cycle in and out of who was filming and who wasn't. And I was just lucky enough to be there for the entirety of the filming. And yeah, it was kind of nuts to do it just 11 days straight. It was very immersive. We didn't have time to, like, kind of exit that world. So I feel like that actually lends a lot to the more theatrical feeling of the film, where you just kind of feel like you're in that endurance performance.
Oh, interesting. Gosh. one, I'm just amazed that it was 11 days. I thought you were going to say like 3 weeks or 6 weeks or something, but 11 days straight. And then the fact that you stayed in that house and that you're basically just surrounded by everything that the character goes through that you play, even when you weren't shooting, that you're still living in that house.
The isolation, the family who actually lives in the house, they have like I wouldn't even know what to call it. It's like it's like a little tiny home. It's like a little tiny home on the back of the property, and they were back there, so they'd come in the morning. I'd see them. I'd sit on their front porch. I got to know them. Like I got to kind of interact with the family a lot. So there was a little bit of time with them, and then there would be these long spans of like not long spans, but a few hours where it would just be me like in the house by myself. They would have gone. Paul and Catherine hadn't shown up yet. We were shooting at night that night, so I had more of the day, and I just would be sitting there like looking out at this yard in this house as a young woman and being like, oh my God, where am I? This is so beautiful. And being able to translate that into Beth, it was a real gift. That feeling of like isolation, but also like hope. It was so much of, I think, what was going on with Beth.
So interesting. And hi, Queen. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, definitely check out this film. Once you're done with this, when we're done with the live stream, you can go right to your favorite digital platform and pay a few dollars and watch it today. So it's nice.
Yes, please.
And Joanna, when you were doing the film for 11 days straight, can you think, was there a certain scene that was like maybe the most challenging scene for you to film?
Yeah, there is. I think it's such a good question because we did so much. I think for me as an actor, the hardest scene is, of course, the last one, and I can't tell you any information about it, but I can say, I think we worked so closely on Paul and Catherine did such a good job of letting me ask as many questions as I wanted to and letting me be involved and get that logic under my belt so that I could really carry the character through the whole script. And when we get to the end of the script, I remember sitting on the floor in this house with Catherine and Paul the night before we're shooting it, being like, but why does she say this? And then why this? Then why this? And I just like couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out in my brain how to flip it the way that I wanted to. Like I had this idea of what I wanted the scene to look like in my head, and I couldn't get it out of my body in that same way. And then when we finally got to the day of and we were doing it, I just remember, I remembered having to tell myself after every take to just like, let it go, like push it out like old potatoes or something, like get it out of the way, because I was still holding on to that idea. And I remember we got to one point where I finally like surprised myself in what I was doing. And I felt like I tipped over that edge. And that was a really exciting moment for me, because this was my first, this was my first movie that I was carrying by myself. I was putting so much pressure on myself to do right by it and do right by this character. And also, I wanted to be good. And I think eventually somewhere in there, I was able to let that go. And then I was scared to watch back and be like, oh my God, I'm going to see that scene. And I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, no, you know what you were talking about. You know what you were doing. If that makes sense. But yeah, I think that scene was tough. And then there was just so many logistics in it. And since we were basically our own continuity people and we were our own costume people and we were pulling so much of that weight, there was so much going on anytime we would shoot that then we would have to like really focus in as soon as we started. And that was always really fun to be able to pull in and out. And it just felt so creative and collaborative. And there was one point where flies wouldn't stop flying around and all four of us were sitting around watching the flies flying and we're like, oh, this is so cinematic. And then we watched back and we're like, that's a lot, redo that. Yeah, so yeah, there wasn't no part of the shoot was strenuous or unfun or boring. It was a very poignant and satisfying experience in my career up until that point. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And there's a lot of things that you said that I think ring true based on what I saw, because to me, I think I may even put this in my kind of brief review that I wrote, was that the film kind of rises or falls on your character. So if they had cast somebody who couldn't pull this off, everything just kind of falls apart as far as I'm concerned in terms of the storyline and the twists and turns that happen in it. But you are so believable as the character, both in terms of all the, and again, I won't spoil this for people, but kind of the different facets of your character that have to be portrayed. It totally worked. So that means everything else kind of comes on board with it. So that's really a testament to your performance, and hearing you talk about that you had a lot of collaboration with the directors and they're listening to you about how you want to do this, or what's the headspace for this for my character, because I'm not quite understanding why she would say this or even do that. But then when you watch the dailies back, you're kind of like, oh no, just relax. You did it right. It actually worked.
And learning how to trust them at that point. Like I said, I was so green. I still consider all of us to be green in what we do until you're masterful. You're always learning and learning and learning. And then I don't think you ever wake up and you're like, oh, I know everything now. You just maybe have a more refined approach. And it really just taught me so much about how to approach a character, how to 100% justify the script that's given to you, because those words that are on the page were chosen and put there for a reason. And talking with them in that, and wanting that stubborn part of me that just wanted to look good or do well and be like, well, if I said it like this, then it would feel more natural. I would do this. But when you really leaned into that language, the character would unravel so much more, and you get to know her even more. And then suddenly you're speaking the words and you're like, wait, was that right? Did that come out right? And they're like, oh my God, yeah, that was line perfect. And I was like, but that felt like my language. And that's a really exciting thing for me as an actor, that when that happens, it always feels like a really good note to myself that, oh yeah, I'm in this. I'm really exchanging with this character now. And that happened a lot with this movie. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I can't ever tell. I'm in true transparency. I started reviewing films April of last year, and so I did 82 film reviews last year, and then this year I did 5 film festivals. So it was the first one was in March, and then the Seattle International Film Festival was in April. The Milwaukee Film Festival was in May. Tribeca was in June, and then I just finished up the Bentonville one last week. So
oh wow,
yeah. So I've seen a lot of films, and I guess my point being is that I kind of know as soon as I see certain things how they're set up, the actors. And I'm not a filmmaker whatsoever, but just kind of seeing if this film kind of looks like it has some merit to it is maybe the right word, or maybe it's gonna be like one of those well, yeah, nice try, but it's not really kind of coming together. And this one is like, okay, they already kind of got sucked into the world immediately, like what's going on here? And then I didn't see the shifts happen. I didn't foresee that at all, so that was even better. And it just kind of hit me in the face. I'm like, oh dang, okay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. That's the hope, right? When you're in this genre, you want to take people by surprise. You want to kind of sweep them off of their balance and you even when I got to finally watch it, I'd read the script so many times. Every morning I was down there trying to be like, where am I? What is the trajectory? Where is this in the journey, in the arc of what she's going through? And I even found myself being like, oh, they pulled that off so well, with the editing or with the music or the way that it was cut. I found myself getting really, really excited when I was watching it, feeling the justification of what the possibility was when we first read that script, to it actually coming to fruition in like you said, in a believable way. And it freaking rocks when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right. That means for somebody like me who had obviously zero ties to the film and just watching it fresh, to have that kind of effect on me, it means that yeah, you all did something right.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure all of us are now beaming. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and I see Queen's asking, because she missed a little bit of the earlier dialogue, how would you describe this film? She's wondering, is it like a kind of an indie horror film or a thriller? How would you describe this, Joanna?
Ooh. I'm never the one who gets to describe it. I definitely would say indie film, indie suspense thriller is what I would go with. Indie suspense thriller. I think it definitely leans on the psychological thriller formula is what I would say. But there's a nice just watching the trailer back just now when we opened up, you can see just in the way that it was edited and put together and shot and color corrected that they're leaning into that almost like 80s camp horror genre. Like, and it gets, I don't even know, I'm not the best horror buff, but I think it does a really good job of putting you in an environment. And I think that speaks to the thriller suspense notion of it. When you really feel like how you're talking about being sucked in, that's what I feel like justifies that category. And I do feel like this film does a really good job of like kind of weaving you in and spinning you around your finger until you realize you're right in the middle of it. And you're like, oh. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, Queen.
Yeah, that was a really great way to describe it, because to me, it's there's sometimes, and I'm a horror fan, so I've seen tons of horror films, and there's a thread with this film being tagged horror a little bit, kind of what you described. That there's definitely sometimes when you see a horror film, it's going to be really unnerving, but you're not sure why, because it's not gory or anything like that. Just kind of sometimes there's a tone to it that's really kind of uncomfortable, and this film has a little bit of that, because you're like, so what's going on with her character, and what's going on in that diner, and then they end up in this house, and what's going on with the marriage, and then things start to get explained to you, and then again, without spoiling things, folks, that some of those answers aren't probably what you're expecting. There's definitely a suspense thriller for sure. I think that's probably maybe the biggest part of the genres for me, from just being someone who viewed it. And it definitely is a psychological piece of it, because you start looking at the characters, and at least for myself, I'm like, there's obviously something horrific about what's going on here, but there's also something really sad about all of them. And so it kind of tugs at that empathetic part of a person's being, that you're like, well, I understand maybe why your character did this. It might be really something that is pretty terrible, but I understand why she did it. And then you also see like the character of your husband in there, like what he's doing, how that's set up. And kind of like, well, no one's clean in any of this.
Everyone is culpable. Everyone has responsibility for what's going on, which again, I think is a testament to the structure of the script and the way they built the characters. I like how you said no one's hands are clean in this particular film. And I think a big thing with playing Beth, when you watch the beginning of the movie, you have a very clear idea of who she is. I think you start to assume a lot about her character and how she holds herself and how she interacts with the world. And I can't say much more, but I think as we were building her and building the story, it was just so important to us that her strength always be bubbling and evident right underneath of some of the ways that she is presented in the script. And I think it's really cool when you start learning more about her throughout the film, that you see her complexities and our ability as humans to be so malleable depending on our needs and whether they're being met or not, and what we will do to get those needs fulfilled. And I thought that was definitely something that drew me right in as I started reading this script and basically begging Paul and Catherine to let me play her. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I really, it was such a blessing and lucky thing that happened when it happened for me to be able to be a part of for that character, because I feel like I learned so much from playing her.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's interesting too that even though the film's release got delayed because of COVID and those things that we talked about earlier, in some ways it may have helped it, because the nature of the film, and there's a lot of isolation, being stuck in that house, all the other kind of things that happen. Well, everyone kind of can relate to that when maybe you're going a little bit stir crazy, being stuck at home because you couldn't go outside last year, or you couldn't do all these other kind of things. So there's a little bit of a parallel between, I was just kind of thinking about that as we were talking, between the whole COVID thing and then the
caginess of it all.
Yeah. So maybe in a weird way, it kind of helped that they got delayed a bit to kind of come out now, so people will have a different reaction to it based on what we all went through and are still going through.
Absolutely.
Now. And I see Queen was saying that I love her enthusiasm for her craft. So That's really awesome. And speaking of your
Thank
craft,
you.
let's kind of go back. So what drew you to the arts? What drew you to theater, film, TV, all of the stuff that you're doing?
Wow. Well, that feels nice to be recognized in that way, Queen. Thank you. I love this craft. I love acting. I love filmmaking. I love theater. I started, I guess, officially acting probably in 9th grade and in high school. And I was lucky enough to be part of an arts program. And then I ended up only applying to like a select few schools for college. Wasn't even sure what direction I was going to end up in terms of career path. And then I made it into a school that had an awesome acting program, and they were talking about Meisner and, movement classes and voice classes. And this is how many plays we're doing a year. And we do devised theater, and we have playwrights, which is like students can write plays and put it up. And basically it just sounded like a big creative tank of like, that's what I want to go. That's what I want to go do and be a part of. And it just really fueled that passion in me to make things and try things out and write and stay creative and take things out of my brain and put them into space. And I really just fell in love with it. And I really fell in love with acting. I don't know. I say this all the time to people who I talk to about it, but there's nothing else I want to be doing with my time other than listening to stories and building stories and watching stories and creating stories. And so I just got hooked at a young age, and I haven't really ever stopped or turned back. I think this film, like I said before, it was a big turning point for me because it was proof to myself, I think to my family and a few friends that like, oh, this is, Jo just graduated, and this summer that she just graduated from school, she's making something. And that was 3 years ago. And I've only continued down that path and tried to strengthen that. I'm still in class. I still go to acting class. I still try to take writing workshops. I was part of a STEAM study class and then a screenwriters class over COVID. And I just I fully believe in keeping yourself well equipped if you're not working to be doing this. So yeah, I hope I'm not tangenting too much, but that's like kind of, I fell into it and I just haven't left because I think telling stories and giving people something to look into, and in that more passive sense of being a watcher where we're almost tricking ourselves, oh, we're here to be entertained, we're here to lose ourselves in something. When you have people in that special and vulnerable space and you are endowing them with these stories from all over the place, it's like, that's change. You're giving these like subtle messages out to people, and you can make huge impacts or very little impacts, but those are impacts and they have ripple effects. And I just am such a believer in that. And that's why I love this whole thing. That's why I love music. I love anything, art, all of it, because someone had an idea and they believed in that idea enough to put it out into the ether so that it could possibly get to someone else. And then there would be a relationship there. And that's so awesome.
Yeah, but no, thank you for sharing your background. And it's interesting that folks that are in the arts arena on any level, doesn't matter what you're pursuing, it's always interesting that it seems like it's one of the areas that has the most, for whatever reason, where people need some sort of proof that you're actually doing something as an actor, or as a musician, as a filmmaker. And I was talking with another actress about this. It's really interesting to kind of think about that, because other career paths don't have that. Like if you're going to become a doctor, you don't have to say, well, look how many patients I worked on today, or look how many, instead of like, if I'm a photographer, it's like, hey, I just got published. Oh, you're actually an actual photographer now, even though you've been working on it for years.
Right.
And it's unfortunately unique to because when you were mentioning when you just got out of college and now you're working on this film, so it's kind of like proving not only to yourself but also to other people around you. They're like, yeah, this is actually happening. It's actually like a real thing. It's like, but they don't think of that when it comes to, well, I'm now a teacher and now I'm a doctor and I'm a whatever. But when it comes to the arts, it's like there's some kind of weird thing where some people I should say can't quite grasp. Yeah. This is the career. This is what I want to be doing, and this is work too.
Mm-hmm. It lacks a tangibility that gives other people common ground, and I think you know, I don't know, maybe I'm naive to think that that's changing a little bit, but I think the way we work socially is changing. And I think I get really excited about things like when people are making these TikTok videos that go viral that are just little silly versions of their own creativity. And there is a validity in sharing that. And though not everyone may believe in that or get behind that or be excited about it, it's opening up those doors it's opening up the question to be like, oh, well, if I can prescribe value to that, then why can't I prescribe value to that one photo that someone took today, or that self-tape that someone did today, or that song that someone wrote today, and call that same kind of, do you get where I'm trying to go with that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I do wish we lived in a world where it wasn't like, oh, you have to be at a certain strata of this industry to be, you know, considered like a real player. And I think anybody who's not in that strata, who's still working, really sees that that's only one part that the world sees. And the rest of the people down here who are still creating, who are making off-Broadway plays that may never see the light of day except for 20 people who come to the audience, they are still showing up in their rehearsals every day. And that's like, that's why it's so cool, because it doesn't always have to be for that epitome of like being seen and having like a visual life to the outside world. A lot of it is just like, let's make it, let's see what happens, and this is important to me. And then sometimes that momentum of it being important to a group of people, it snowballs, and then suddenly everybody can see it, and you get those really special things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think again, the last year and 3-4 months, it's been kind of also a real eye opener for people when things were taken away. I mean, if you're somebody who goes to see like maybe a play once a year, or you go see a concert once a year, when you didn't even have the option to do that or not do it, that's when I think maybe people started realizing, you know what, there's a lot of value in these things, and I just kind of took it for granted until it was taken away from me. And I'm
community,
and I'm with you. I really like it when if someone's putting out a creative idea, and it doesn't matter on what level or in what form, but just something that they had in their head, and then they make it a reality. I'm always interested in seeing what somebody does. And as a reviewer, that's been really hard for me. I'll be completely honest, because I don't want to bag on another creative person. So I try to find, and even if you're being constructive criticism, even that has its time and place, because sometimes people don't need that either. So it becomes this situation where if something isn't resonating with me, maybe it's going to resonate with somebody else. So I'm kind of mindful of that, and I can't really win, because then I don't know what is around here. I'm not going to be putting people on blast here in Seattle, but there's a lot of people in this community that they say that all the reviewers around here are like that we're too nice. And I'm kind of like, okay, so you want me just to rip somebody a new one? Because I bet you probably won't like that either. And I won't feel good about it as another fellow creative person. So I think there's a better way to do it. So it's just interesting. I just figured out at the end of the day, if I'm true to myself of what I believe and how if it's a film or whatever I'm reviewing, then that's what I stand by. And if people are kind of like, okay, I like his style, or I think it works well, or whatever, great. And if they think there's a huge issue with what I'm doing, it's too nice or too fluffy or whatever, then that's on you. I mean, I feel good about it, so that's what it has to be. And I do see Queen was asking, is there a way to purchase a DVD version of the film?
I believe there is.
Is there? Okay.
I should know the answer to that, but I believe there is. I know that there is also like the video on demand options, like on Amazon Prime. I know you can rent it. Not sure if you can buy it there as well, but feel free to DM me and I will give you that information.
There you go, everybody.
in the age of where you can get to me and I can get to you. And I think what you said is so, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say I love what you said about being a positive reviewer and understanding your impact as someone who's giving feedback on the creative process. We are all critics in our own heads. And when we watch things, we all have our opinions, because we take it so personally when we watch things and we love them or we don't like them because of how they affect us, because they got us in that vulnerable state. They got us in that state where we took our time to exchange in that space. And I think it's a really cool, awesome thing that we as humans can do, that we can, yeah. Anyways, just, I love that you said that, and I love that you're conscious about that. So maybe people call it too nice, but I think it's just you being conscious of other people's experience, and that's great.
Well, I appreciate that. I was really wrestling with this about, actually right when I started around April of last year. There was a film that, and this director knows this because we actually had a really good conversation offline. He sent me his film, and I'd only reviewed, I think, one other film prior to that. And I was like, as soon as I was watching this, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did they make this thing? I just wasn't working for me. Oh, and I thought, well, maybe it'll get better. Maybe there'll be new characters or a really great finale or something. It's like, no, it just didn't work for me. And so I wrote the review, and then I said, I don't know how I feel about this review, so let me contact this guy, because he's the one that set it up for me, the director. And I was just really transparent with him. I said, look, as another creative person, this didn't resonate with me at all. So I don't know if you want me to publish this review or not. I said, I am the boss, so I don't have to answer to an editor or somebody else who's out in 48 hours. And I said, go ahead and read it, and then let me know if you think I should or shouldn't, because I'm actually fine with not publishing it, because I don't want to hurt your future potential for backers and anything else that comes with creative projects, because I know how that works. And he was really, really appreciative of the fact. They said, no, Mark, I understand some people aren't going to like what I do, so I appreciate the fact that you're at least honest enough to tell me basically to his virtual face. And and we kind of worked through it. And he said, no, I want you to publish it. And then I'd already made the decision internally, like, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I don't feel good about this. If I don't feel good about it, that means it shouldn't be published. So I just nixed the whole thing. And we went on to do a live stream interview later when I was on the Alice tour and all that stuff with that director. And I'm looking to actually have him come back, because he's been working on things. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, you just kind of know, at least whatever the little person inside your body tells you, is that this feels right or this doesn't feel right. Then I just try to go with what feels right. And that's where we go with it. And I'm curious, so what is coming up? Do you have some things you've been working on, things you've been writing or rehearsing, or what are we looking forward to here?
Yeah, for me, there's one project that I'm not allowed to say titles of, but that project, I have a small role in it, and that's going to be out in late November. So if you're interested in following along, again, you can go to my very inactive social media that I sometimes use, and I will definitely be posting about it. I'm trying to get better and join into this world where we can share information better. But that project is actually really cool and really special to my heart. I got to film it back in March, and the kid that I worked with on that project, we just had such a good relationship. And again, it was just such a marker after such a long year. I felt very lucky to have the opportunity to be able to work back in March, basically a year after the pandemic had begun, for us here on the East Coast. It was just, it was really cool, really special. It's a really awesome project. There are some bigger people involved, so you're gonna want to watch it, and you'll just see my face on screen for maybe about 10 minutes, if that. And I will be there for that. So you can follow for that. Let's see, I am working on a short film, which just my friends asked me to participate in, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's the magic of being in New York. I'm working on an audio play as well. So that we just started rehearsals for that yesterday, and that's really cool. It's about two clowns in a circus tent, and the circus is closing, and their relationship. And so it feels like I was really bummed and really sad over the past year, because I didn't feel like I was working. So I did start writing more, and I now have lots and lots of pages of a feature script that I'm editing and trying to figure out what I want to do with it. So I feel really lucky right now to finally feel like I have my feet under me again and be making things and being able to be creative. It was really hard. It was really, really hard to go through that year. I think everyone felt that, and feel like all the community that I had built was suddenly gone, and all the momentum that I had was suddenly gone. And I don't mean to be speaking about this as a singular experience, because I know that is not true. But in my experience, that wind had been knocked out of me, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I think now I'm starting to get some of that breath back and some of that confidence back, because I definitely lost some confidence. And now I'm starting to feel myself like be this person who like is really starting to believe in myself. And when I'm doing these self tapes and I'm trying to write things, like trying to get myself out of my own way and stop telling myself like no second guessing, no doubt, none of that editor in there saying like, oh, well, what about this and this? Like trying to really focus myself on the positive and the forward, because as we all learned, like anything can happen at any time. So all we can do right now is be present and pursue what we want to do and do it wholeheartedly in full force. So that is what I'm trying to do. And that's what's next for me.
Well, I really appreciate how genuine and transparent you are. You have such a nice energy about you, and I think Queen's picking up on this, and maybe other people that are watching this too that aren't in the chat. I think a lot of people can relate to what you said too about last year, that I think depending on where you were with whatever you do in life, that a lot of people we all lost steam for sure, and then you lost some confidence and kind of start questioning about, I know for myself, I started thinking about what's important in my life. And so once we get out of this, I'm going to make some changes, kind of a thing. So now it's proof in the pudding time for me of like, okay, Mark, you said 6 months ago, or even 9 months ago, you're going to try to make these changes. Now you have the opportunity to do it. What are you doing about it? So I try to hold myself accountable that way. But yeah, there's definitely things I was just kind of lost. As I mentioned to your pre-show, the fact that when the opportunity came with the Alice folks, I mean, that really was a lifeline for me, because I would just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have any direction right now. And then now I had something to focus on, and it was something new. So it was like an educational experience for me, which is always good. And I can't thank them enough for just giving me this opportunity. And then it just, once I sink my teeth into something, I don't really let go. So it kind of went nuts. I mean, I still keep track of my numbers. I mean, this is live stream number 129 this year.
Hey, yay.
Yeah, so it's like, and it's been, and it happened completely organically from left field. I didn't say, well, I think I need to do the virtual thing that I keep hearing about. It's like, no, someone had to kind of twist my arm, which was a band from Los Angeles that I love. So it's just like, life can be so random sometimes.
Yeah. And that generosity, I mean, and like you said, you sunk, like, not only did you get the opportunity, but you made the best out of it. You did sink your teeth in. And that's testament, because some people, like, the opportunities can pass us right by, and we can be like, wait. And you just don't get to latch onto it hard enough. And so I like what you said about proof in the pudding time. I think for a lot of us, we started to reevaluate our priorities, like you said, and now you're right. We're like stirring that pudding, adding some sugar, maybe some chocolate, some gummy bears in there, trying to like get it to the right consistency for what we think will take us to the next step. So I think that's awesome that now you have this out of just that small, someone being like, hey, do you maybe want to open for us? And you're like, open? What? And then boom, here you are talking to me, giving me this opportunity to share my story. So cool.
I couldn't have said it better. I'm so grateful. When any guest takes any amount of time to talk with me, and I'm not gonna lie, that usually when I do in-person interviews, you get maybe 10 minutes, depending, especially for bands. You don't have a lot of time because they're on the road. They got ready for the show they're doing. And some of the actors I've talked to, that might have been more like 15, 20 minutes. But the fact that like here it is, and it's 44 minutes that I've been talking with you. And it doesn't feel like it's been 44 minutes either, which is great. That's a really good thing. That means we're having a nice dialogue, obviously, and we're having some folks that are joining us online as well. So because if it was dragging along and really laborious or like torture, then it would feel like, oh, it's only been 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
How long am I talking with this guy? It seems like it's been really good. But Joanna, I want to mention to you really quickly that as we get close to wrapping this up, if you could hang on when we finish the live stream part, so that I can talk to you offline really quickly about something, I greatly appreciate that. But for folks out there, the film is, the publicist is going to kill me, I keep calling it A Savage State, and I don't know why. If like there's some other film called that, but it's A Savage Nature, folks. That's the name of the film. It is available digitally. It sounds like there is a hard copy version of it. I'll have to do some digging around to see if I can find the links for those like Queen who want to buy it and support the creatives that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Joanna just mentioned all these different things that she's got coming up in different aspects of it, not just one particular aspect of the art. She's got different things she's been working on that are going to be coming out in the near future and possibly far future. So that's always exciting that you got this variety on your timeline. And again, Joanna, I really thank you so much for taking the time. I thoroughly enjoyed this interview. And yeah, I want to talk to you about something offline that might potentially bring you back here to this virtual forum with me. So
that would be great. I would love to come back. I just thought about that a second. I'd be like, wouldn't it be cool if now like Mark and I would just check in every couple of months?
Yeah.
Thank you to your audience as well. And thank you. I'm just really grateful for you giving me the time too.
Absolutely. Everybody out there, have a great Wednesday. Stay safe out there. And if you want,
watch a savage nature. Woo!
There you go. And if you can't get enough of me and my bald head, I'll be back in about 40 minutes for another live stream. But yeah, Joanna, I'll talk to you real soon here right offline. And everybody else, stay safe out there. Thank you so much.